And we're live. Every time, just to annoy you.
Yep. I think that's by law. Every stream has to start with, and we're live.
Yes. Saturday morning roundtables. We do this once a month, first Saturday. Share our projects, what we've done, what we might do. I don't think much has changed since my last month, except everything's changed and how things go. Do you want to start with your project?
Sure. So my project is Conferati, platform to, I guess the short form is to fight misinformation. I had been sort of stuck in a loop of trying to work with developers and find developers and meet with developers. I think I had my final meeting of sort of like my first phase to get the estimates and figure out, who seems to be on the same page and really understand the specs. So I think after this, I'm going to be going and starting to schedule the round 2 meetings, which should be in more depth. Which should be in more depth, and then hopefully I'll be able to actually pick some developers over the next maybe 2 weeks, and then get started. So that's where I'm at.
All right, I can run through mine while Bentley's getting caught up, or do you want to go, Bentley? Where do you go?
Did you say you haven't caught up yet, Jubilee?
No, I haven't gone yet.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know what I'm actually saying, but solution raising, I'm still looking to make into a podcast. Peer coaching, WeWeave, I'm still looking to find admins, and people are going to invite it. Really, my life is just currently falling apart as the universe makes it very clear that if I don't have people, nothing is moving forward at all, including my own personal life. So I'm just waiting on the next thing to come that will help with that, and following the next thing and the next thing. And that is basically my project is watching humanity crumble while sitting in the corner being like, hey, if anyone wants a solution, I will be over here. If you all want to fight and divide each other, you have fun. You have fun. So that is currently what is up. Oh no, FA moved over to Discord, so I just haven't been keeping up with it, but someone's on vacation, that's still moving forward, which is great. Even if I fall apart, that's still happening. So eventually there'll be a mutual aid network to utilize.
Awesome. Yeah, I've been, I don't know, what have I been doing? I've actually been taking care of my mom a lot, so I haven't spent much time on my project. I don't know. I think I had the website last time in the dark mode. I think we talked about that. I can't remember now. There's another group I'm giving updates to, and I can't remember where I was last time. So I could show you all that, but if I've already showed that, there's not much new. I'm still working on if saturated fat has a negative impact on your heart, and the scientific studies on that are interesting and conflicting. And then I also have some data from another group called Society Library that did a huge study. They have 4,000 claims about the nuclear power plant in California that they're talking about closing or making a public decision whether they're going to or not. So it's all about nuclear power, and some subsections of that are debates about how dangerous is nuclear power, and other things about that I could put in a reason score. So, but their data is not organized in a logical form for scoring. So I'm trying to figure out how to do both those. And Jubilee, a lot like you, I feel like I kind of need someone working with me on this, which I've hired someone in the past, but I'm finding out that this needs a very specific person who enjoys detail and is also very logical. So I'm working up. Last time I posted a job post, I got 30 people in like 48 hours, and I'm like, I can't review all these resumes and stuff. And a lot of people, they're looking for a job, but some people are just any job, so they're just posting to everything, and they're spending 30 seconds to post, and I have to spend 30 minutes on each to try and figure out. So half the time is just eliminating people. So one of the things I think I'm going to do is create a form on my own website that asks some questions that's more detailed than LinkedIn allows you to do on the free plan. And then hopefully that will help people self-eliminate and make it easy for me to determine. And hopefully it won't self-eliminate the people that would enjoy that type of thing. So just trying to balance all that. So I don't know, if we don't have a task, I could show that, that application process, see if anyone has any feedback or whatever. And I don't know if there's anything else that y'all want to go over. I don't know. Adriel, you mentioned your project's getting to the end. Are you looking, or your description, are you looking for any more feedback on that or anything?
Not so far. I mean, like, I'm sort of in the part where I've already got my development advisor that you and I had chatted about in the past. And it had been taking a while to sort of get all the phase 1 interviews done. And I just did the last one, I think, yesterday. So now I'm ready to start sort of scheduling phase 2. I have to go, and set up a calendar and find times that'll work for possible developers and my development advisor. But I mean, it sounds like kind of, especially you two, but me to a degree, are all sort of, trying to find help and trying to figure out how to pick people. So I think the thing that you were talking about would help all of us, and I'm guessing people watching too, because I think I see Daniel's watching, and I'm pretty sure he needs people. So I think anybody doing stuff needs people. So that seems like a pretty universally good topic. You're on mute.
Yeah, although a lot of the projects need money first, but
Daniel, should be sorry, Daniel. There should be a link on the Facebook post with how to join the live stream.
Yeah, and I was just gonna figure out if we could also post that to the gamebee.org site, unless someone already has. Groups. I should have set this up. Facebook has a silly, trying to pull the link off Facebook, and of course they put it in a Facebook link. I'm wondering if the main link is.
Sorry, where's main link? Are you talking about the StreamYard one?
Yeah,
I'll put it in the private chat. I already put it on Facebook, but it's in there, and I sent it to Daniel directly as well. So hopefully he'll have access to that. There we go. Hey, Daniel.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Cool.
Perfect. All right, got all the regulars here.
I lost where we were. I was sending a link to Daniel, but you also sent it to Daniel. Then I couldn't find which tab we were in.
Oh.
I'm back. Nice to see you, Daniel.
Nice to see everybody.
Ruva update? Or any project you want to give an update on? I'm just assuming that's the one and only.
Sure. I'll talk about like my dream project, and then something really specific while I'm here I could ask you guys. As far as development, so my main developer is talking about, we're in these phases where we're going to have to kind of transition. Like, the guy who did a lot of the work is kind of going to start moving away. And that's frightens me a lot. But so I'll have to bring new people in, and details aside, he's suggesting that we use some kind of cloud dev environment. Like GitHub has one, and he's shown me one or two others. Do any of you have any experience with these? I think you can do things like pay $8 a month, like, or something like that per user. Do you have any idea what I'm talking about?
I do. So, yeah, basically what you're doing is instead of using your own computer to do the software development, you're remote controlling into a computer in the cloud, usually.
The hardest thing we have when I have brought new people on is setting up the dev environment. They can spend hours sometimes trying to figure out what's up with it, and I'm learning there's reasons for it because my original guy kind of made some tech choices that are cutting edge. They're not super common, and I think he used Ruva as a chance to I'll experiment with new things. It's just fair. I didn't know the questions to ask at the time, so yeah, it can be hours. And sometimes if someone walks away from the project for 2 weeks and comes back, they're like, okay, how do I set this up again? And so I don't know what to do. I've actually thought about just setting up a dedicated computer and just that's always running, and then letting people remote into it. But every dev I talk to says, I would hate that because it's going to be laggy. That is my duct tape solution, is like, can I set up a PC and let you guys just remote log into it? And I'll never turn it off, kind of thing. So you can just log in and start coding without having to worry about the environment. And then, yeah, like I said, there's these cloud solutions. I'd rather save money and not pay whatever it is, $10 a month for these cloud solutions. Are they good?
Well, I haven't actually used them at all. I imagine they would be pretty good. So some options in those things is that you might be able to create the hosted computer but not have it running all the time, so you only pay when someone's using it. I don't know if they have that option. And then it still might be good. The new devs may say, the dev may say, well, I don't want that. But it's like, well, at least they have a running copy that they can learn from. And it'd probably be good to have them be on the project for a month and make sure they understand how everything works and they've built it and run it before they try and spend that time to get it running on their own machine. So that could be a logical thing, especially if it is a complex setup. The other, let me see. So yeah, you can have it running on your machine. The problem is, as far as remoting into computers, yeah, so that would be the reason that would be slower than the cloud, is that you have two network speeds to worry about: their connection to the internet and your connection to the internet. So it would be a little slower on your computer. But then screen sharing doesn't take up a ton of bandwidth. But it depends, Daniel, on how consistent and reliable your bandwidth is. If you're streaming movies all the time and they're not getting any hiccups, then it's probably okay. Your video looks pretty good right now. So
also,
those are the things to think about.
If you'd be hosting the computer yourself, would a dynamic IP end up being an issue? Or do we know, is our static IPs at all standard now? I kind of assume
yeah. See, that's also, that, and then you also have to punch a hole through your firewall and set up port forwarding. You would
remoting in, and I just use Google. Google has a thing for that. It's so easy.
Oh, just install the client.
But that's not the Google it's not unmonitored, right? Someone usually has to accept that on the other computer.
They give you a code, and you share the code with whoever.
So you have to do that every time they want to code.
I think it stays open until I close it. That code is good.
I think it times out.
Whatever.
I was using that for so I remote into my family's computers for support. So TeamViewer's pretty good, but after a while and you change computers a couple of times, they'll lock you out and have you send your IDs to them. But that's a pretty easy setup. Actually, I'd probably suggest more Real VNC. They allow you up to 5 computers. Actually, so creating a custom Real VNC account would probably be the easiest thing. Because TeamViewer will, after a while, that account will break. But yeah, actually, Real VNC should be fine.
So,
Yeah.
so one dev I'm trying to bring on the project, he says, I like the idea of remoting into a computer better than a cloud hosted solution, because they said, well, I'm imagining this will like run in a browser, and then they're like, I would probably lose like keyboard shortcuts that I'd like to use, stuff like that. It would be annoying. And then they say, well, the remote in would be annoying because the lag, copy paste, it'd just be slow. So that's why I'm leaning towards the remote solution rather than the cloud, because he's worried. He's like, I kind of lose, some ways I want to tweak my setup. And I'm not a coder, so I just listen and I assume that these are normal things.
I don't know why the cloud setup would be any more or less cumbersome than remoting into a computer. They're both using the same technology.
Okay.
They're both using some sort of screen sharing tech.
All right. Well, you answered my question. Sounds like you've never used one of these cloud ones. So if we tried it, it'd be an experiment, at least for me. And hey, I'll let you guys know which.
I mean, it really depends on cost, and you'll still have to have your existing dev set it up. But so one other option is to have them create a virtual machine. And then you can use you can run virtual machine on most computers. So they would be running it locally. It's a copy of a computer running on a computer. So there's something. Is it called Box? What is it? Let's see. Go ahead.
Would this look like, okay, so I've got, say, Dev 1, my starting person, and then I've got Dev 2 we're trying to bring on. With the what did you call it?
Virtual PC.
Would the virtual machine be something like Dev 1 goes to Dev 2's house? Now, we're all in same area here. Dev 1 goes to Dev 2's house. They create the virtual machine on Dev 2's computer, and it's like running in the background, or he can like put it to sleep when he wants to. Dev 1 sets up the whole environment there, and then when Dev 2 wants to work, he wakes up the virtual machine. Is that like a good steelman sort of for what you're describing?
Sort of. So it's really more like thinking of taking a machine and saving it down to one single file, and now you can copy that file or send that file to someone else. And then it's a copy of the computer at the time that file was created, or the last time someone edited it. So 2 people could be running them at the same time, but then they would kind of be unrelated, and that's okay, because when they're updating the software, they need to be saving the code up to GitHub or something like that and syncing it back down. But at least it would be a pre-set up computer, and it'd be a file that the person would be running locally. There is some software that has problem with that, and there are some computers that aren't really good at running virtual machines. So, but it'd probably be a good fail-safe to have a virtual machine backup of your dev environment anyways. So I was trying to...
Sorry to interrupt. There's someone who joined the StreamYard below named George, and if you turn on your camera so we know you want to be added, then we can add you in.
And we don't have to go more into this because I always forget if we're doing like a hot seat thing or if we're doing a round table or whatever. But that's I appreciate any details, and we don't have to like keep going on this. I never want to like take up all the time. Oh,
so yeah, Oracle VM VirtualBox is the software I've used in the past.
Okay.
It's if you're on a Windows. If you're using a Mac, then you have to use something else. It used to be free, although now that Oracle bought it, hard to say. Anyway, so yeah, those are some options.
Speaking of Macs, man, we had to buy a Mac. We finally had to buy a Mac in order to get the freaking iOS version. Yeah, like I felt like such a chump. But
that's Apple.
Yeah, like we did like every workaround we could, and then the final step where we'd have to like upload our new package or our new bundle, which would be a repeatable process. I finally caved, and I'm like, if I'm gonna have to do this like every time we release a new like bug fix, we'll have, so it was sad. I felt like a chump.
Yeah. Anyways,
my other project is I always dream about doing a tool library type of app, and so I just throw that out there. If people want to, I'm not a dev, but I like design and I like thinking through the problem solving. If anybody sees this or feels ever inspired to buy tool library types of software. I love that kind of thing. That's like, my dream project if I could make it happen.
Cool. I think if that's all of our updates, I'd be okay with going into the topic that Bentley had mentioned, since I think that's probably applies to all of us with the whole, finding people and
is that hiring?
Yeah, like the hiring and the asking questions and the self-filtering and us filtering and that whole part of the conversation, because that's definitely a common theme in all of our projects.
Yeah. So this is my kind of brainstorming for the position I'm hiring. So let's see if we can. Actually, I don't want to increase font size. Where's that? There we go. So I start off with a warning. So because people often aren't going to read very much before they start, just sending you the resume, or in my experience right now in the current hiring market. So please be sure this sounds like a task you'd enjoy. Many personality types find it draining and burn out. It's probably good for people that like solving logic puzzles, detailed work, lots of reading, and tedious data entry. And then for my position, I just, each one of us, our needs are going to be different, but for mine, it was attention to detail, consistency. I do want them to be on video calls with the camera on. I want to make sure they understand the U.S. culture, because that's where we'll be releasing and experimenting. Familiar with scientific papers and scholarly articles. Anyways, 10, 20 hours a week. And then, big long meetings with me. So the time isn't completely flexible. Because what I'm finding is that since I don't know what I'm doing well enough, I can't just assign the work to someone. It's more like exploring the space together and having someone to bounce ideas off of. So I give them an idea of some of the tasks. We'll be looking for well-worded public arguments, researching the evidence and logic between all sides of the arguments. All sides is important because I think one person I had recently, they could not stomach looking at opinions for people they disagree with. Then that's something you have to be willing to do. And reducing sensationalism. It's funny, some people are kind of sensationalism blind. Like they don't understand how that's less useful of a way of speaking. And it's actually a problem when I try and hire marketing people, because they're used to sensationalizing everything. Although I do probably need to have some clickbaity titles in the project. just to get people to open it. And then I think the first line will be a caveat saying, here's the real title for this. Anyway, so the way I was thinking about asking these questions is going to build a form on the website and say, for each of these items below, so for all of these things, and this may be too much, this was just a brainstorm, but I said one of the kind of rate maybe like a 1 through 10 on your experience or effectiveness on that topic. 1 to 10, how much you enjoy it, and then write a sentence or two about a specific example where you did this. And I guess I need to be clear that, and I'll write this better, don't have to be a 10 on everything, and don't need to have experience on everything, because it's unlikely one person will happen to have done all this.
And if they say they've done it all in 10s on everything, I'd take that with a big old grain of salt.
Yeah, well, if they put a 10 on everything, I'll probably ignore their submission. Because they are not connected to reality. So they're for that, rate themselves and rate how much they like doing detailed data entry, organizing break apart statements logically, speaking on a public video meeting, analyzing and comparing research papers, and rewriting statements, reducing sensationalism.
I have a question, Bentley.
Mhm.
When you say speaking on public video meetings, do you mean like one that will be public, one like this where people could theoretically be watching live, or just be comfortable on video and it's not actually recorded or posted anywhere for public?
It's definitely recorded and posted. They may be live in the future.
Yeah, I think if it was one of the lesser ones, I feel like a lot of people's anxiety would stop them, but you're looking for someone who's comfortable enough to be on video and have it be released to the public. So I think that's exactly what you said.
Yep. So I don't know if seeing that, I'm open to feedback.
I think that's good. One thing is that part at the very top, I quite like having that sort of the caveat of like, hey, hold on before you go through all this, heads up. I would try to find a way to have a bulleted list there, just so it's like super quick, hey, we're looking for people who like this, boom, and then go into the because some people get burned out, da 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 da. So the very first thing is like, you should like this stuff, and then you can self-select yourself out in 5 seconds. The first thing in there, you're like, no, I hate that. All right, see ya.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
So I feel like the last sentence, a person with the right personality type might find it fulfilling. I feel like with the right, they will find it fulfilling, right? The right personality type will find it fulfilling. I have those things, and then I might find it fulfilling.
I hate to overpromise and underdeliver.
Or maybe
it's not the right
would
personality type, though. If they
but
don't
would.
That
person may not exist.
Because you're like, I think they should find it fulfilling. It's slightly more active, I think, but
could. Will most likely, within a 99% chance.
Will 100% money back guaranteed find it fulfilling.
Right. I'll think about that some more. See what I think.
Yeah, I know this is your thing. I wonder if you can add the reason for the published video calls. I think my only worry for you is that it will dwindle your pool of candidates a lot. And the only reason I say that is because I have talked to some people about Ruva on the phone who are very, very excited and could talk for 30 minutes or more about the topic. And I say, you know what? Would you be willing to do a recorded call? It could help spread this information, on the topic of my project. And they, oh, no. I don't want my face out there, and personally, I was just a little surprised that some people who were very passionate about a particular topic were just, I don't pressure to like really pry on why that was. I have theories on just you have hyper, privacy people. But my only worry for you is it will dwindle your pool. That's keep doing whatever you're doing, but that's my feedback.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that. Right now the problem is the pool's too big, so dwindling's probably not a bad idea. It'd probably be good to mention why, because then they'll have an idea of what type of video it is. So, but it's funny. I would think that people would know what, I don't say it here, but what build in public is. But I find when I say that, people that phrase does not make sense to someone who's never encountered it before, which I'm just so used to it. So yeah, I'll probably add that in. But yeah, I kind of hope it'll reduce the number of people. Now, the good question is, can I find someone who is okay? The Venn diagram of people that are willing to do detailed work and be on video calls may be so small that no one will apply. But if I put this on LinkedIn and I get no replies, then yeah, I'll probably, that's a good idea that should be one of the first ones to look at removing.
I also think like having the words build in public is probably helpful to have in there, because people who do know that and do know to look for that will like use those keywords. And I feel like it's a very different personality that wants to build in public, i.e. make mistakes, all of that in public, versus get your shit together, have a script, and be an influencer on video. And if for some reason someone thinks you're offering that one instead of this one, it's like, right, no, come get it wrong. Read the scientific papers. Yeah, anyway.
That's a good point. Yeah. So yeah, I'll figure out how to phrase that using that term, but also kind of explaining what it is for people that haven't experienced it yet. Cool. I guess I could also show you all the latest website and see if, I don't remember if I showed it last time or where I was.
Last time, but you may have changed.
I think you showed it last time, and I think you said that the dark mode, like you were working on it, and I think you were mostly showing like the new icons and that sort of thing.
Yeah. So this is it.
Is this the evolution of Gullybot?
Yep.
Nice.
I had to. Huh?
I like the name of this a lot better, just from a branding perspective.
Yeah, it's funny. I talked to a branding guy. He said it's too long, and I'm like, "Have you tried to get a domain recently?" Or it's too hard to figure out how to pronounce, and I'm like, or it's a tongue twister, and I'm like, yeah, if I can get something under 20 characters.
Sorry, the person was saying, "What's too hard to say?" Reasonpedia.
Reasonpedia, yeah.
Yeah, I would argue with that.
Yeah,
that seems like if you don't know what Wikipedia is, this probably isn't the project or time in human history for you, because that's I don't know many people who like wiki election can kind of weird some people out because they always want to say wiki election, but like that seems to flow just fine. Reasonpedia.
Yeah. And then I got all these caveats. It says experiment underneath it. It says alpha at the top. So hopefully no one will get the idea that I'm claiming this will fix the world. Explore the reasons behind popular and useful arguments and help us find holes in them, which is, I think, going... So the target audience for this is really kind of your crazy uncle, to make them feel comfortable. And then I think everyone else will find value out of it. But those are the people I wanted to make the most comfortable. Anyway, so we got about how it works, and I need to split this up. I don't know if I talked about this last time, but there's two questions people have in this area. It's like, how do we get the scores? Although we haven't talked about the scores yet. And then what's our process, or how are the scores calculated, and what's our process? So I'm kind of answering both there. And then the biggest other question is, should you trust us? And I'm like, no. I mean, maybe I should just put no right there, but we're not asking you to trust us. We're not claiming these arguments are true. We're documenting them. And then they can do more about trust. These links don't have anything behind them right now. And then some examples like concealed carry laws reduce crime, but they're all, it's why people say. So we're not saying that that's true. We're saying this is why those people say that. Ivermectin doesn't reduce COVID. Saturated fat causes heart disease. Those are three. Actually, the ivermectin thing I'm not working on. I'm working on the saturated fat. Actually, I'm probably going to take concealed carry off and go with some question about nuclear power because I have some data on that. Yeah, so that's the site, and yeah, that's dark mode. Just for those that are curious, light mode would look something like. Oh, it's going to take me a while to figure that out. But anyways, I don't know if you have any feedback while I'm futzing around.
I like that. The only thing, if you scroll down to sort of your examples, I would personally lean towards trying to intentionally kind of have both phrases, because people don't actually read. They, like, especially if it's in bold, they're going to skip everything and just jump right to concealed carry laws reduce crime, or ivermectin doesn't reduce COVID, which, if you don't understand the context, sounds biased. But if you're saying, like, here's the two sides, we're intentionally stating both, and the whole point is that we're allowing both sides to give their sort of sides, their arguments. Where I think in order to sort of, appeal to your crazy uncle, you want to have at least a statement on there that your crazy uncle would agree with, no matter what side they're on.
Yeah. So another way to do that is that might be shorter is. Well, so so I could say does/doesn't.
Yeah, I think asking it as a question that both sides agree that's the question you're trying to answer. I also do kind of like the intentionally stating both sides so that people can, like, oh, if somebody thinks ivermectin does reduce COVID and they see that listed, they might be more interested in engaging, thinking like, oh, they're actually saying something here I believe in. Although the open question, I think, is also good. I think either way.
Yeah, I'll have to think about that, because when they get, I guess actually also most of the time when people will see this in the future, they will be hitting one of these pages, and on the page it will be as a question mark. It'll be formed as a question mark. Does saturated fat cause heart disease? And then further below it will say, kind of like Goalybot, the way the system works, you have to actually pick a side. So whichever side's winning at the moment will be it. Yeah, so I'll have to think about that, because if I do it as a question, saying why people say, I'd have to figure out another phrase for that, I think. What people say about does saturated fat cause heart disease, something like that. I'd have to figure out what to do with that.
Right.
But let me make a note on your suggestion.
I feel like, because what's being suggested is kind of like a binary option, and most of these things don't necessarily, like, some of them have binary options, like you said, ivermectin does or doesn't reduce COVID, but also if that's not the other one, it could be ivermectin, I don't know, reduces the time you have COVID. Ivermectin, you know what I mean? That there's pro and con various statements, and this is actually how we have conversations and give each other information, is more as statement of fact. And then we don't question it, right? And so having the statement of fact that people say without backing it up, and then have why people say that it brings it into the binary. Like, it actually, like, why do people say that, right? What is the actual evidence? So we're not just using it as a slogan, which is, I know, what the project actually is. So I guess I'm saying, I don't know if I agree with Adriel that it needs to have the other part. Especially if it's coming off of other sites that are more divisive and more like that, when something like that is, that it's going to be tagged to this site, and it's not a debate necessarily, even though it is kind of, I
would say I agree that, like, erring on the side of it not being a binary, I agree with that, but it sounds like that's kind of one of the key premises of the tool, is if it's being offered as a binary, then it's hard for it to show it as not a binary here, but then you go to the page and you are saying, here's the two sides, pick one.
Yeah. I mean, it's unfortunate that this project can only handle binary. questions so far.
Which I think if you like ask the question specific enough, I think you can kind of get to a binary. But the problem is just with how the public actually argues, or like a specific word choice can then have 30 questions underneath it. Where it's like, oh, okay, does it reduce it in everyone? Does it reduce it in teens? Does it reduce it in, people named Jim with heart conditions that have like, you can get really specific. And then sometimes, oh, actually in this one case, maybe it does, but in every other one, it doesn't. Now we're like, okay, so it does and it doesn't at the same time. And then you have to get more specific.
Yeah. And then this, like in that case, it would be, the average, statistically average US citizen.
Right.
So yeah, we would claim that. So yeah, I almost need an asterisk by every single one of these because they're all less specific than when you get to it. But it kind of gives people the idea. Yeah, so I'll have to think some more about, take this discussion into context and see if there's any improvement there.
Yeah, I think also, as long as you're trying to like maintain some amount of, impartiality, I think kind of, what's the saying? The quickest way to get the right answer is to be wrong on the internet. And so trying
Ask
to
the
both
wrong
engage
question.
people, but then also say things that like, if somebody disagrees that those are the two options and they engage, you're like, oh, hey, it sounds like you're interested. Come on board. So to sort of be more engaging and show impartiality, but then also kind of bait people into engaging if they don't think that that's the right question or etc.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
I'd like to offer my take on this. This is really interesting. First, if you scroll up, I would make your subtext like double the font size. I'm just giving you my first impression. Take it or leave it. Maybe try it. I don't know. You're going to try to change it right now?
I was thinking about it.
Might be worth playing around with it. That just kind of hit me as like, yeah, make that bigger if that's kind of your yeah, ooh, yeah.
Large.
It could be the size of my screen too, is kind of small. So anyways, but down below, yeah, this is an interesting thing because it's like, maybe we don't love the word like advertising, but this is, you're trying to get people to move through a workflow essentially. So if you scroll down to what we were talking about here, yeah, these examples. So I've been kind of a big fan of like, what would be called like action-oriented design. So always giving someone like a thing to do on any page. So that's sort of where my thinking's coming from. But yeah, how could this be worded differently? Again, just take it or leave it. I think the way I am seeing this, I see this a little bit more as like, you're just listing topics rather than questions or claims. So again, this will be kind of extreme change, but I know you'll rewatch this or whatever you got to do. My intuition says get rid of the what people say. Where it says examples, say like example topics or example claims, or say dozens of examples, because that's what you want to have one day. Instead of what people say, you could just say topic, or you could just get rid of that altogether. And instead of making a claim like concealed carry laws reduce crime, just say concealed carry laws. The next one could say COVID and ivermectin. The last one could say saturated fat and heart disease. Like, you're just listing topics, and then underneath, I don't know what you'll have instead of coming soon, but it would say, I think it would say explore, because that's what you're inviting people to at the top, is like explore this topic. And I understand, the approach. You're thinking, I'm gonna like make the claim or pose a question, and that's what people usually run into. But what if just as a thing to wonder about. What if it was more just like a list of topics, concealed carry laws, COVID as a topic, heart disease as a topic. That's kind of what I see. I don't love the what people say thing. I feel like that could be interpreted so many different ways. Like, is this usually when I see a website that says what people say, it's like reviews. And I know that's not your intention. Like, I understand what's going on here. But thinking about, instead of making it a statement, like a question, just keep it topic based. Concealed carry laws and crime, rather than, well, you understand what I'm saying, I think.
Yeah, I think that's interesting way to think about it. I did right now, just because the examples don't exist, I did want them to see a more detailed than just like a topic title, because it gives people an idea of that the questions. A lot of times I'm getting a problem where people are thinking it's too broad, but these questions have to be binary and they have to be specific.
Sure.
So I wanted to give those as examples, but it's interesting. It's a good point also about the why people say it does sound a bit reviewish.
I don't know the answer. It could be that you'll get more. I know that this is controversial. It's not always about numbers or whatever, but you are wanting to have people use this. So would you get more use if it's just a statement of a topic, or would you get more people to be like, oh, I agree or I disagree with that, and that would make them want to use the tool? I don't know the answer, but I guess I'm happy as long as there's different ways to approach the list of examples. Yeah,
that's really good feedback. It's a good thing to think through.
I love that larger font size, what you just did.
I kind of like that exact size there. Where I think any bigger it might be too big. I kind of like that it's wider than the Reasonpedia. So to me, that just it much more makes me want to jump from Reasonpedia to, okay, what's the tagline?
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll have to play with the fonts. The other fonts do tend to grow and shrink a little more. But yeah, that's yeah, I'll have to figure out what size that is.
I think depending on how the data ends up being structured and how you can display it, one of the things I think like might call me to action if I saw the list of questions, which I think this might be a later state thing if it ever supports it, is kind of showing like the current amount of content available for the two sides. Because if it'll be presented as binary, if I'm either for or against the topic, if I see that something I agree with has a bunch of, like, hey, there's 78 supporting articles, oh, cool, I might want to go check some of those out. And whereas if the side that I believe in is sort of, is losing the argument, but I see that it's got, one article, I might want to go in there and be like, oh, well, I know of 8 more articles that could support this. So to kind of have either side, if it's very well supported or not well supported, to show sort of the amount, to give people on either side of that a reason to go and sort of either see what's in there, and if they know of something, oh, it says that there's only 1 or 2 articles, I know more than that. That gives me a direct reason to say, oh, I can contribute to this. I don't know if that made sense or not.
Yeah, I think it's helpful.
I think the copy here reads pretty well. Like, seems good. My intuition says it seems good.
Good. It's only taken me a couple of years of feedback from all you guys and from other people as well. So it's been a long road. Cool. Well, I can stop sharing and we could blather on about anything else that might be coming to mind for people, or
I have a very practical question for my developer friends. If I want to hire someone new, is there, this is going to sound really naive, but like my understanding is it can take a lot of hours for someone to become familiar with a project. If I'm trying to like come up with tasks that are billable, or yeah, like should I make like exploring the project a billable task? Like I want you to spend 2 hours a week for 4 weeks just logging in and familiarizing yourself with the code. Like don't change anything. Like how is that normally handled?
So I would leave it up to the person, but I would offer them that option, saying, "Hey, if you want to take 4 or 8 hours just reading through the code or through some things," for some people, when they're exploring a code base, they like to have tasks to use to explore, and so one or two ways. One is you could just give them flat out time to do it, or you can just say, you know, if they're giving you any form of estimates, then, you know, for the first month, their estimates are usually like should be double, and then they'll get faster and faster as they get more familiar with the code. So there's two ways to think about it.
So a professional would have that familiarization time baked into the tasks anyway.
Yeah, when they say it'll be about 4 hours, that usually in their mind they would make it a little bit. They would go, "Oh yeah, I don't know the project, so it's going to be slower." So I would say 8 instead of 4 for that task. But it depends on how senior, you know, the developers are that you're hiring. If it's someone that's not very senior, then often what I do is, you know, I just kind of give them the tasks and see how fast they're going, and I just know that they're going to speed up over time, and that the first couple things I give them are going to be really slow. Yeah, I don't. So, but I think, you know, telling them, you know, take a couple hours to go look around and, you know, ask me if you have any questions, or ask my past dev if you still have someone available. Like if they see any tech, if there are any questions you can answer, then yeah, I would offer it to them, because for some people they may prefer, before they're given a task, some time to look over it.
Thank you.
I think if you have like open forum time where you're saying, hey, go just learn for 4 hours, I would try to still have some kind of a deliverable, even if it's like, hey, write 2 paragraphs on what you learned from this, just so that kind of frames what they're actually trying to learn. And it also gives you like, oh, okay, they actually spent that time learning. They answered the question properly. They understand it, as opposed to, oh, sorry, I got distracted and watched Netflix for an hour and a half of that 2 hours and then forgot to turn off the billing, but it's already billed.
Another option is to also, a good task to give, exactly to Adriel's point, is to say, go check the README documents, depending on how many things you are. That's the document that kind of tells you what's going on with the project, and check to make sure those are update them.
I can put Easter eggs in the code or the READMEs to test them. Like, did you see the comment about the ferret or something? Like,
right?
Easter eggs.
But oftentimes it's you know, there'll usually be something that's out of date or wrong in those, and so usually, or just to add more meat into them. It's like, oh, you said you're using this, but you're only using it in this one place of code, so it'd be nice for the next developer to know that up front, or yeah, to put something in the README that would help future developers shorten that ramp up time. Okay. So that's a thought.
I think
every time I have a new dev, I do suggest that they keep a Google Doc or something open to make notes of the things where they thought it was going to be one way, and then because they read it in the README, or because you told them something and then it was something different. So something, you know, just of walls that they run into when they're learning, and then you can work on making it easier for the next dev. And there'll always be something like that because someone's going to make a change. So
I think that part kind of built on a question that I had from something that Daniel had said, where one of the developers is moving away. And I'm not sure if that meant that they weren't going to be working on it anymore because they also got a new job, or if it was just now they're going to be remote. But on either side, one of the things that I'm trying to make sure of as I find developers is like the actual structure of the assigning work and the deliverables. Where my goal is to kind of assume that's going to happen a lot, assume that developers will come and go, and to make the project as portable as possible. So sort of like one of the things that I'm going to try to do is for each milestone have it be detailed documentation, never save the documentation for the end, then have somebody else review it and have some sort of a back and forth around, okay, here's the like earliest thing that we can actually go and test or render or actually run. What does the documentation look like, and how do we get like a third or a second party person to take a look and say like, okay, do you agree that this documentation is good? It's not, you might have a stellar coder who can't write the documentation for beans, and then, well, they made something good, but now we're tied to them in a way that I personally really want to avoid, because I'm going to assume that there's going to be lots of people coming and going, or even just hiring, a second person on board. That's kind of the same as, I think, replacing one person, where how do you get them spooled up as fast as possible, so you can start getting, work done ASAP, and not have your project held hostage by people, just being people, by saying, sorry, I worked on this for 2 months. It was great, but I got a full-time job, so I'm going to go do that now.
It's tough because I don't want to say this for sure, but the danger of that sort of bottleneck situation where one person has a majority of the knowledge on things that are not obvious. Like in a professional environment, things should be done a certain way, but there's always going to be outliers and exceptions. And if the majority of that knowledge is with one person who doesn't have very much time anymore, that's really scary. And I'm just sort of laughing, cringing, because it's like hindsight's 2020. Hindsight's 2020. So the portability sounds lovely, Adriel. Like, what a great idea.
Yeah, but like, how do you accomplish that is the hard part. I think in an ideal world, like if I had unlimited resources, I'd want to have 2 development teams that any feature would always cycle between them, and they aren't allowed to talk. They're only allowed to talk through documentation. Like, you can both talk to me and be, okay, great, this person worked on this module. Now it's in your hands, add this feature, and the documentation should support that. So if you have any questions, let me know, and then that's feedback for the other person to do more documentation on it. But that, of course, is a lot. Like, you'd have a lot, you need more developers and more resources, and probably a third person to actually review the documentation and know what questions to ask. But that's one of the things that I'm trying to figure out, is what does that structure look like for how, which I think from what the dev projects that I've been adjacent to, even if they want documentation, they basically always save it for the end, or it's like, oh, just add comments and then we'll figure it out on the other side. But then they're trying to document something that, even if they do it, oh, I coded this 4 months ago. How did this work again? Why did I write that? That seems dumb now in retrospect. Oh, right, because I tested this and that didn't work, so I had to go this other route. And it's it feels weird because it intentionally slows down the development, which I think is going to be an outcome of a proper, like, making something properly portable. But I think that's a trade-off that, like, I'm willing to roll the dice on. We'll see if it ends up being a good idea or not.
Yeah, we've had some problem solving that was, I don't know, tremendous, I guess. And I see what you're saying, because when you're solving a problem that you think, like, as a developer, your intuition is like, oh yeah, we would approach it this way, and like maybe there's like a plan B, like, that is traditional or something. But once you start getting to like version C or version D of your problem solving, and you fix it, then if that area of the code comes up again 6 months later, it can be hard to remember, oh yeah, we had to do like something really not obvious. And that's just a danger anytime you get in a non-obvious situation. But alas, we move forward with wherever we're at. I really appreciate, the help and guidance that this group and everyone I've talked to has given me. It's been awesome.
Same here, yeah. And I'll say I especially appreciate the input from Bentley. It's been insanely useful having somebody in this kind of a context who has a deep development background, being able to, give proper, like, not weirdly biased feedback on, like, no, this is just from a purely like best practices standpoint, or you might want to watch out for this issue that you're going to experience. That's been very useful, especially as I'm trying to navigate managing a development project, not being a developer. All right, call it there. I think we're at the hour. We're a minute over.
All right. See you next month in October.
It's September already, but all right.